Aleichem, and welcome to the Hawaii Inter-Island Chevra Kadisha series. I do see a couple new faces, so for those who don't know me, my name is Nahama, or Shana, if you know me as that, and I'm the Rosha of the Women's Tahara team and the Halachic advisor for the Maui Chevra Kadisha. And I think, as most of you here know, a Chevra Kadisha, Sacred Society, is traditionally the organization that supports and assists families and communities at the end of life and after. In the Torah and in our subsequent writings, death is described in a variety of different ways, including going, coming, sleeping, resting, lying, gathering, leaving, and departure. And what all these have in common is the idea that the spirit survives death. There's a beautiful comment in the Zohar. At the moment the time of departure is reached, the soul, because of its joy, love, and intense desire for the Shekhinah, issues from the body to greet the Shekhinah. So just as our coming into this world is a birth, so our leaving this world is another kind of birth. So let's now take just a moment in silence to center ourselves and prepare to receive inspiration, wisdom, and understanding from tonight's presentation. If you'd like to close your eyes or get comfortable or just pray or whatever you'd like to do, we're going to take a couple moments of silence. Adonai, you grace humans with wisdom and teach humanity perception. Bestow upon us your knowledge, insight, and understanding. Baruch atah Adonai chonen hadat. Blessed are you, the grantor of wisdom.
Amen.
So before I turn the mic over to Alice to introduce our esteemed speaker, I would like to say mahalo to Andrea Snyder and her family for sponsoring this gathering in loving memory of her mom, Sherie Vaughn, who was birthed into a new life a year ago, right? January 15th, which was the 2nd of Shvat. So Andrea, would you like to tell us a little bit about your mother, whose memory we're honoring with tonight's presentation? And I can put a picture of her on the screen. Yes, please go ahead.
I just wanted to especially thank Alice Lockman, Barry Langley, and our loving and all the loving concern from our Oahu Chevra Kadisha. You really supported my family and me in my mother's final days and in her passing. With the virtual Tahara and Shiva and marking the 1-year yahrzeit, you really made the Jewish traditions so meaningful for all of us. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Nechama, for the welcome blessing, and mahalo, Andrea, for sponsoring this event in the loving memory of your mom, Sherie Vaughn. May her memory be for a blessing always. Zichrona levracha. Like a sukkah sheltering the people of Israel in uncertain times, the Chevra Kadisha enfolds our island Jewish community. The Chevra Kadisha supports the Jewish community, including rituals that guide us through the most challenging times. It offers a pathway for embracing life fully, a companion to the process of integrating life's inevitable losses and doing it as one community together. Our Hawaii Inter-Island Community Chevra Kadisha is dedicated to educating the Jewish community around the Hawaiian Islands and others who engage with our Jewish families, like chaplains, hospice workers, caretakers, funeral and mortuary personnel, and interfaith leaders. We learn together about end-of-life Jewish rituals, and we serve as resources for each other. Thank you all for joining our session today, the fourth in our educational series. It is entitled Death, What Jews Do, and it is taught by Rabbi Me'irah Iliinsky. So Rabbi Me'irah Iliinsky defines an angel, malach, as a worker in the service of God. For sure, she has earned countless angel points on her rabbinic journey. She has contributed her wisdom and artistic gifts to many, including the Tree of Life community of Pittsburgh after their tragic loss of October 2018. For me personally, Rabbi Me'irah has been a source of blessings when I needed one. Putting on a mask, taking off a mask, surviving a long trip to visit my family on the East Coast during COVID and the COVID surge, and even offering me a blessing on my 77th birthday. Today, we are grateful to have you with us, Rabbi Me'irah, to share your paintings about the journey of the soul at the end of life in Jewish tradition. Please welcome Rabbi Me'irah as we learn together about death, what Jews do.
Welcome, Rabbi.
Much, Alice and Rabbi Nahama. I'm really honored to be asked to speak with you, and I've been looking forward to this evening, and I'm so glad I'm here, and I'm so glad to see your faces. That's a treat. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and I'm gonna try sharing it in a way that you can, yeah, okay. So my title of this presentation is Mapping the Journey, the Mourner and the Soul. And having been a social worker, you're learning, I want you to know who you're learning from, okay? Iliinsky, Me'irah Iliinsky. I am a Reconstructionist rabbi. I was a clinical social worker and a family therapist, and I have some experience in hospital and hospice chaplaincy. And I've been an artist ever since I was a little kid. So we're going to cover a few things today. This is a good introduction to Jewish mourning rituals in a visual presentation. I'm going to talk with you about one of my favorite topics, the liminal space. And we'll see some common psychological experiences of the mourner that I gained from my clinical social work practice. And then at some Chevra Kadisha conferences, I learned from Simcha Raphael, who's written a big book, Jewish Views of the Afterlife, big, thick book. And he talked about what happens during the soul in the first year of mourning. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have what happens to the mourner on the bottom and what happens to the soul on the top of a map? And so I painted a map, and here it is. And I made it in 4 panels so you could fold it like a folding paper map. Remember those old quaint relics? And but here I had to show it as 4 panels. And what we're going to do, we'll go through each panel in great detail, and then I'll pause at the end of each panel so that we'll take some questions at the end of each panel. So there are 4 periods of Jewish mourning: aninut, from death to burial, which is a very brief period of a day or a couple, 2-3 days. Shiva begins with the burial and goes for 7 days. Shloshim it just means 30. Shiva means sitting. Aninut means oppression or mourning. And so Shloshim is 30 days from burial, and the yahrzeit is the 12 Jewish months from death. But when we get there, I'll explain why we only say Kaddish for 11 months. So these are much different time periods, but I painted these as 4 equal panels because I felt that the emotional intensity of each panel was about equal. Like we need a whole panel for Aninut, etc. Okay, so we're gonna start with Aninut and go through it. But first, I have to talk with you about the liminal space. So the liminal space is actually an architectural term, the limen, which is the door jamb. And Arnold van Gennep, an anthropologist, brought it into the field of anthropology as meaning a time that is not one normal thing and not one other normal thing, but something in between. And we could do a whole presentation on that, but the main thing I want you to know is that when you're in a life transition, you're in that liminal space, and it's a time of danger because things are not bounded, the rules are not clear. On the other hand, it's also a time that is open with great opportunity because we're living in somewhat of a time like that in the COVID time, especially in the beginning. Now we're finding coping skills and we're finding ways within it. But at first, it broke down everything we were used to, which means the building blocks are there to build up in a new way. So I felt like my cat sitting in the kitchen door was the illustration of the liminal space. So exciting out there, but the dogs are out there as well. So Aninut, okay, here's the first panel, and I'm gonna go into each detail of it. Every map has a little thing telling you where it's north, south, east, and west, a little compass. And so I thought about this and I thought, north is Olam Haba, going straight north, the world to come. And Olam Hazeh is south, that's this world. To the northeast is the direction we read in English. We go forward. So that's, again, we're moving in our lives toward the bundle of life, Tzur HaChaim. And where did we come from? We came from creation, Bereshit, in the southwest. And simply east and west, I just have Kadima and Achronit, forward and backward. So the first scene we have is the deathbed. The mourner to be in the green is attending the ill person. And that is very much an experience of being in the liminal space. And that's what the little dots are all in the picture. It's understood that there are angels nearby, that the ancestors are coming to meet the person who was dying. And we have even a term in Hebrew, goses, which means between life and death. And that's the person who we would call, I guess in English, is actively dying. I want to say something about the depictions of the spirit after death, the soul after death. Judaism doesn't have a pope who says this is what we believe, okay? So these beliefs are through history. we've had many sages who have opined about what happens after death. We have mystical understandings, and it's not like there's one understanding that everybody agrees to. So these are strains of understandings, okay? So down below with the green around it, that's where the mourner is. And after the person dies, and I've symbolized that, the moment of death, which actually isn't a moment, it actually takes a while, it's a process. But there's a certain point at which someone is clearly no longer alive. The moment of death, the mourner may feel like they're in a fog bank. Like, what do I do now? Where am I? What's happening? This is not the normal world. And traditionally, we tear a garment at the moment of death. Here's a better picture. The body is cared for by the Chevra Kadisha, washed with beautiful prayers and sending the person off and asking God to forgive them for anything they might have done in their life. And this ritual is called Tahara, and it's done with incredible care and thoughtfulness and love and presence. And it's understood that the soul of the person is hovering nearby, especially over the head of the deceased. We call it in Kavod V'Nihum, we're calling that niftar or niftara. The body has served its purpose. And so in the Tahara ceremony, we don't walk behind the head or pass things over the head, with the understanding that that is where the soul is present. The next step in the journey, in the ritual process, is Shmirah. The Tahara team are the last people to see the body. They close the body in a plain wood casket with a sovave, which is the cloth you see hanging out there. They put the lid on, and that is the last time that any human, living human, gets to see the person. And then the next thing we do is sit with the body until burial. And that's Shmirah, watching or keeping. And we read Psalms or other inspiring work, but we don't study Torah. We don't do enjoyable things because the person can't share with us those enjoyable things. Not to say that reading Psalms isn't enjoyable, it is, but it's, Psalms are okay. Psalms are okay to say. And having done Shmirah, I can say one might feel the presence of the person touching us or being there. Meanwhile, the mourner is very involved in doing sort of tachlis things, practical things. Got to call a rabbi, tell them the person died, call the mortuary, notify relatives, plan the funeral, write the obituary, prepare the home for Shiva. And because of that, we have this interesting tradition in Judaism that the mourner, while their dead lies before them, meaning the Aninut period, are relieved of all ritual obligations. They don't have to say prayers. They just have to take care of business. And my understanding of this is that they are so close to the divine, having been with their person until they died, or just knowing that the person has died. It's closer to the divine than doing our things that we do in the usual, when we're not in the liminal space. Let me say that. One of the benefits of being in the liminal space is you feel closer to the divine. So meanwhile, now I have to admit that there are like 4 or 5 names and aspects to the soul, and I'm not well educated on what each one is and how they differentiate from one another. But one aspect, the nephesh, is sitting in a nether place, under the ground place called Sheol, and beginning to review their lives. So, oh my goodness, here we have these close up. Levaya is such a beautiful word for the funeral. It means accompaniment. We accompany the mourner in their grief. We accompany the body to the grave, and we accompany the soul with our love and our care. At the funeral, the family will say Kaddish for the first time after the person is lowered into the grave and earth shoveled on. Okay, and I have a cat who is wanting attention. Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right, let's pause. I'm going to stop sharing, and except that I can't find my cursor here. Okay, I know what we need to do here. I'm going to stop sharing and see if people have questions.
I just want to say before you take a question, this is absolutely beautiful. I love what you've done with the illustrations.
It's so heartwarming for me to feel that, you know, people are touched by this. I see a question from Brooke, and I didn't mention this. I know this sounds silly, but everyone dies. Just think of that. Every person dies. And just like every birth is different, every death is unique. And I can only put on the map one picture. And so, yes, the classic picture of the person in the deathbed surrounded by loved ones, the way we all imagine or hope that we might die, but it doesn't always happen that way. On to the next panel. Let's see here. Share. Okay. All right. So we're going to move into Shiva. This is the next panel, Shiva, which is a 7-day period. And Hibut HaKever means the pangs of the grave. And we'll go into that. I think this is one of the most important illustrations in the map, the Shiva home. The door is left open so that the mourners do not have to play host and hostess and greet people and welcome them in to a doorbell. People just come in, and that's what they should do. The Shiva candle, the 7-day candle, is lit. Traditionally, the mourners are on low stools in the house, and the neighbors are bringing in food. And traditionally, there's a beautiful custom, which I've only been able to participate in once or twice with the people who knew about it, where you come home from the funeral to the mourner's home. You sit them down and serve them food. It's not like a potluck. You serve them food, and after they have had enough to eat, perhaps they may want people to sit around and have a potluck. But the point is, they're to, in another world, to be worried about cooking and greeting people. And in fact, you're not supposed to talk to the mourner unless they talk to you first. And when you're sitting there next to them and they've talked a little bit and they nod their head, that means you get up and move and let someone else sit next to them and be silent until the mourner addresses them. Now, these are beautiful and wise customs, but the problem is when the general public doesn't know about them, it's very hard to carry them out. So we're doing an important job educating people. But this, in this illustration, is also one of my favorite teachings from Rabbi Margaret Holub. She says, you know, when we're alive, we know where our bodies end and your body begins. But our souls, when we live together or work together, become mixed into one another. And when one soul leaves and goes off in death, the soul of the mourner wants to go with it. My father died in Guatemala, and I came home and I just wanted to sit in my hammock and eat tortillas and wear my Guatemalan clothes. I wanted to fly off there with him. And the fact that we sit Shiva, that we surround people with other people in the community, we are holding their souls here in life. It's a very important job. And the soul is, I'm going to click here, the soul is kind of saying, where do I go? Where do I belong? That's my house. Don't I belong there? Oh, maybe I'm supposed to be in the cemetery. Where am I supposed to go? And there is a tradition that the reason we do Shiva for 7 days is because it takes the soul 7 days to understand that it has died and that its home now is in the cemetery. Okay, that's the soul of the mourner trying to go off with the deceased. The experience of the mourner is, can't we just rewind time and go back? Why did this have to happen? Did something I do make this happen? Can't we just go back and do it a different way? That's a common emotional experience. Another one is sightings of the deceased. Maybe you wake up and you think they're standing by you, or maybe you see them coming around the corner when you're out walking. And I call that the mirror of sightings, where their presence is still visible to us, to the mourners. And the feeling like, how can the world be the same? How can the sun rise like it's just another day when my person has died? What is going on here? I also, which I didn't show you a detail in the Shiva Minyan, there's the burning, what is it? The burning fire pit of gnawing loss in your stomach, or the cave, feeling like you're in a cave. So we're gonna, I'm gonna go on to Shloshim, and then, well, maybe I'll stop here again and see if there are any questions. Are there any questions? Okay, let me stop sharing.
I have a question, Meir. Why do we cover the mirror in Shiva?
Well, Shiva is a time where you don't want to be focused on yourself. you don't want to worry about how you look or how you're presenting yourself. People in Shiva don't have to bathe or change their clothes or, shave. It's a time where it's such a beautiful thing that Jews give people a time to feel the grief that they feel. I've had people from other faiths come to me and say, what do Jews do? And they find out, and I say, well, what do you do? And one Unitarian minister friend of mine, I said, well, what do you do? And she said, nothing. They don't do anything. No. And ritually, that people are left alone to figure this out by themselves. And you're giving me a chance to explain to you what I think a ritual is. When we're in the liminal time and we don't know what to do, a ritual sort of raises up this little tent and puts little stepping stones, and it says, okay, now just do this one. Okay, now you go home and you sit Shiva. Now you do this. Now it's morning prayers. And it walks you through till you can get to the other side with some safety and support, community support. And I didn't mention that at the cemetery, when people help shovel on the earth, let me go back to I'll wait. When people shovel on the earth, that's such a community supportive thing, to have the whole community there helping shovel on the earth. Okay, any other questions? The pangs of the grave. I think what I'm in a class with Kavod V'Nichum where we're studying 16th century text called Ma'avar Yavok, crossing the river, which is the first example we are aware of a manual about death and dying. And it was written by Aharon Berechia in Modena, Italy. And it hasn't been translated into English, and our teacher is making an attempt to do it. For 40 years, he's been working on it. It's a big book with a lot of mysticism in it. And as we're going through it, having been a clinical social worker, I'm seeing that much of our ritual and beliefs are the psychology of long ago. Okay, they recognize psychological states and they're working there. So chibut hakever is pretty much the regrets of the deceased. What did I do with my life? I wish I had done such and such. I'm ashamed that I did such and such. It's the pain that you feel, your soul feels when your opportunity is over. You can't be in that life to correct it. And I think in a sort of medieval sort of punishing kind of way, that is the language. But I think what they're talking about psychologically is the regrets we have. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing the screen. Okay, so we're going to head on to Shloshim. What's going on? Wait a minute. There we go. Okay, Shloshim. So we see, this is the overall map of Shloshim, and we'll go through each part. See in the lower left, life review, regret, emotional purgation, Gehenna. That's what I was just talking about. Okay, so at this point, the soul is beginning to understand, oh, I've died. I've died. My home now is the cemetery. And here's what I was just talking about, which is referred to in the text as Gehenna. There's some suffering in Gehenna. For the mourner, this is the 30 days after death, and the big rituals of Shiva, is over. People have sent their cards, they've brought their food, and you're on the back page now. You're on the back burner. It's not in the front of people's mind anymore, and people may feel like they're wearing a cloak of invisibility over their grief. They may feel like they're on a desert island of loneliness and isolation. And as they think back over what they didn't talk with this person about, or what they didn't do, there's a waterfall of unanswered questions, a pool of regrets. I wish I had asked my mother who taught her how to knit. These little things that we take a living person for granted until they're not there anymore. I call this the rendezvous cafe of dreams. That often the mourner will have a dream where the deceased appears to them and usually brings them a message. And often the message is, I'm okay, don't worry about me, or I love you. And it's wonderful to write these messages down, that's a little touch point, a little meeting between you and the person after death. And you know how dreams can feel so real right before you're fully awake. It's a very exquisite thing. And some people I know say, I wish I had more dreams of this person. But these empty clouds on each side of the mourner and the soul are there for you to write in the message that you get. Okay. Then there's often people say, oh, I want to get out of mourning. I want to do a straight upward trajectory. It's there's an old cartoon of Charlie Brown and Lucy, and she's got, psychiatry 5 cents. And he says, I don't want to have ups and downs. I just want to go straight up, Well, mourning has ups and downs. And instead of going straight up, it feels like going round and round in one of those roundabouts sometimes, where sometimes you have a good day and you feel peaceful. Other times you're concerned about unanswered questions. Memories may come when you're not expecting them and cause you to tear up suddenly. Sometimes you feel like you're going back to day one, and you have fears that come in an out of place time, all these different experiences round and round, but with a general trajectory toward peacefulness. All right, I'm gonna ask Shana and Alice to see if there's any questions, and if there are, I'll stop my screen sharing, and if they're not, I'll go ahead.
I don't see anyone hand raised. Would someone like to just speak up?
Okay, well,
All right, well, we'll continue then. We'll have time at the end as well.
And there'll be more questions. Okay, so then we come to the yahrzeit.
Oh,
And this is the whole panel of the yahrzeit. Yes, Hannah? Oh, wait.
I'm Jennifer. Can I ask a question about what you just, excellent, thank you. You keep talking or referring to the fact that the soul's new home is the cemetery. And that's a challenging one for me, kind of next to the idea that the soul goes on and the soul has gone from this very physical expression of a body into this much more abstract experience.
Hang with
Okay,
me.
okay, thank you.
It's temporary in the cemetery, temporary, okay? All right. So here is the yahrzeit panel. This is, okay, so this is the whole rest of the year from the first month. This is the whole 11 months more of the first year of mourning. So the roundabout gets less painful. Okay, one begins to remember the blessings that person brought you in your life, or you feel the inspiration, or you remember their wisdom. You feel grateful. There's also longing and loss, and the sad feelings. But there is a movement toward a little bit less pain. And let me say, the Jewish period of mourning is a year. It took me 2 years to really believe my mother had died. I mean, I knew it, I'm not out of my mind, but to really integrate it. And so, this is the Jewish way of breaking it up, but you can have this mourning experience go on for quite a bit longer. It's normal. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so at this point, the soul gets to rest in the Garden of Eden. Okay, it's done its grief work, and it's getting a little rest and recreation in the Garden of Eden. And there's this thought that when you study Torah at midnight, all the souls of the righteous come and visit you from the Garden of Eden to enhance your study. Toward the end of the year, anytime after the person dies, it's really important to make memorials. And these are just a few that came off the top of my head. Giving tzedakah, of course, naming children after the person who died, studying in their name, photo albums, visits to the grave, and of course, saying Kaddish if you possibly can daily with a minyan. And you'll see the nature of the Kaddish changes over time. And I'll tell you later when we're talking how I learned how important memorials were. Toward the end of the end of the first year, we have the mourner who's lit the yahrzeit candle, the first yahrzeit candle. And there's been an unveiling of the tombstone, and seeing the tombstone is another very impactful experience. And I call this the firefly field of fleeting memories, that after time you have a trace of a memory here and there, a little memory here and there, and that's what's left to you of the person. Meanwhile, the soul goes and joins the Tzror HaChaim, the bundle of life, which is a beautiful thing. It's like joining God, the life of all worlds. And there's a beautiful teaching here from Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, who says at this point, you have a special partnership with the deceased, that we are here on earth Our souls are here on earth because we have bodies and we're walking around, and we have words and we have hands and we have feet, and we can do mitzvot. The deceased soul has no body and it can't do the mitzvot in this world, but they can serve as an inspiration. If I may mention a beautiful example of that, Jamie Raskin, Representative Jamie Raskin, who was the lead impeachment manager in the second Trump impeachment trial, is my second cousin. And people said, how can you do this when your son was buried a week before the impeachment trial? And he said, I feel him in my chest. And Tommy was serving as this inspiration that gave Jamie strength to go forward and do this. And that's a beautiful example. Others of us have less dramatic examples, but certainly we felt inspired by the people we have lost. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. I think this is, yeah, the bundle of life. So we've seen the Jewish mourning rituals of tearing when the person dies, of doing tahara, of sitting shiva, helping bury the person at the grave, marking a stone and lighting the 7-day candle at first and the yahrzeit candle at the end. I've talked with you a little bit about the liminal space. We've talked about some common experiences of the mourner and a little bit about the Jewish understandings of the whereabouts of the soul after the first year of death. Okay, all right, and all right, I'm gonna stop sharing. And I want to tell you this story about how I learned why it's so important to have memorials. When I was a family therapist, I was at a conference, and we had a presenters presenting a case that they had with the permission of the family that they treated. So there was a teenage girl who was very suicidal, and so suicidal she had to be put in an institution. And the people treating her, in their intake form, you know, they asked, has anybody in your family died recently? And she wrote no. What they didn't ask, the people giving this presentation told the audience, was they didn't ask, has anyone close to you died? And they asked her this, and out comes this story that they lived next door to another family, and the kids, there were lots of kids in both families, they were back and forth spending time in both houses. And this 15-year-old and her family, she comes home one day and the neighbor had shot his wife and all his children and committed suicide. This horrific, traumatic thing with this family that was very close to them. And it was so horrific that her own parents had a lot of difficulty talking with her about it. And in family therapy, we say she was holding the grief of the entire family. She was the identified patient, showing the grief that the whole family felt. And so what the therapist did was they went to work with her about making a memorial. And in that way, she and the rest of her family could take the grief that they felt and take it outside of their bodies and their mind and put it into something outside themselves that says, we're remembering you. we don't have to carry you in our heart all the time. We're remembering, we're remembering you here. And that's why it's so important to have memorials to help. If you don't have a good memorial in some way, you're gonna have complicated grief with the person. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking and I'm gonna take questions. Okay, I think that helps you put something, a painting, a writing, a poem, a stone, an altar, something that helps externalize this grief. Yeah. And of course, the stone that we put on the grave. And also a lot of people are getting cremated these days, which is not a Jewish tradition. And it takes the thing that distresses me so much about cremation is that we don't get to do so many of these rituals. We don't get to shovel on the grave. We don't get to have a funeral. We don't get to have a gravestone, although you can make a memorial with the ashes. Somebody said to me once when I was a hospice chaplain, Rabbi, when someone's cremated, when do you start Shiva? And I don't have a good answer for that. And especially now, you don't know exactly when they're getting cremated. I didn't mean to bring up this controversial subject. I want you to know my own mother was cremated. She decided, she made arrangements for it. But it's a troubling topic. Okay, other questions, Rabbi Jennifer? Thank you.
I just think it's very important. One thing that I try to always keep in mind, and when I'm speaking with other people, is we have a whole gambit of customs and traditions concerning death and dying within the Jewish people. And it's changed over time. And we don't really have a lot of guidelines that tell us what we're supposed to do. We have some guidelines that tell us what we're not supposed to do, that they used to do this and we don't want to do it that way. And you can go, if you've ever looked in the Shulchan Aruch, there's some pretty far out mourning customs that none of us do. Nobody does them anymore. So I think that's something to keep in mind, is that customs come and go. And if they're meaningful for someone, then we need to provide that. So for instance, our Chevra here, we decided we're not providing shards to put on eyes. But if somebody asks for it, we're going to have a little bit to have there in case, because for some person that might be a very meaningful custom in their family or in their tradition. And so I think to keep this mind that all this whole intricate system of laws and practices concerning mourning, they're here to facilitate the mourning process for us. They're not here to tell us what to do. And I get that a lot. People come to me, what am I supposed to do? Well, here's what you can do. And here are the things that our long tradition has told us that have been helpful to other people.
Yeah, let me add to that, through my learning from Kavod V'Nihum, there is no halacha around death, precisely because every death is different. You cannot make a law that's going to cover everybody and burden people when they're in mourning. And so it's all custom. It's all custom. Yeah. Thank you. One thing I didn't mention was the Vidui prayer. And, a lot of people don't know we have a final confessional prayer, but a lot of people also don't know we have a nightly confessional prayer and a morning confessional prayer and a Monday and Thursday confessional prayer. And the idea, I think, again, is to help us get aware of what we're feeling we need to confess and get it off our chests. And I have here A dear friend, I think maybe some of you know her, Holly Blue Hawkins, who came to, I think she lived in Hawaii, and she wrote a beautiful contemporary vidui that I would love to read you. If my cat will let me. Okay, thank you. It's in this little book that Alice will talk about the book later. Holy One of Blessings, source of all being and becoming, here I am naked before you in humbleness and gratitude, fully aware that the measure of my days is in your hands. Whether or not it is my time to leave this body, I ask that my soul receive a complete healing. When it is my time to return to you unfettered by physical form, I ask that my accomplishments here on earth be for a blessing to those who follow, and the record of my many frailties and failings be buried with my body, so that my soul can return to you pure as it was given to me. My actions in this lifetime, for good or ill, be as compost fed back into the wholeness, so that all I take with me into my soul's next journey is whatever wisdom I have been able to accumulate by your grace. El Shaddai, Hamakom, Anochi, full source, now and always I lay my life at your feet. Bless the source of all life, and may your abundant blessings nurture and sustain all living beings with shalom.
Amen.
Um,
Man.
yeah,
If you go to verseseliminated.org, which is .com, which is Me'irah's website, you can see the painting that she made for that vidui actually as a card. And it's actually, I send that to some people when somebody is dying with that vidui and her beautiful artwork at
all
the
the
cover.
angels. Holly said to me, I finally get it, vidui. What happens in this life stays in this life. You don't want to carry it on. Okay. I think that unless anybody has another question or comment, I think my part is done here.
Well, thank you. This was really fantastic presentation. I'm so honored that you've been able to come and speak to us. I know that I learned a lot, and the illustrations are fantastic.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Alice, would you like to say anything before we go to Rob for a closing?
Ready for Rabbi Rob. Thank you.
Rob.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Me'irah, for sharing your aloha, your art, and your wisdom with our island communities. We really appreciate you being with us. In closing our workshop today, I was thinking more about the theme of your book about mapping and journeys. And also this quote from today that you said that when one soul leaves, the soul of the mourner wants to go with it. And that really spoke to me because it's like we lose that GPS signal when someone dies. And that GPS signal that fits into mapping and journeys. Because each of us is very unique. All of us here in this room, in this Zoom room, 36 of us total today, 36 individual and unique GPS signals transmitting to each other so that we never feel lost, that there is a connection no matter which island that we are on, and that together we form a community of mentors and learners that encourage, that motivate, that nurture and teach so that we can help not only each other, but our own communities on this journey of compassion and end of life rituals. I end with this closing prayer for all of us. May the one who blessed our ancestors be present to those of us here. May we be filled with fortitude and with courage, endowed with sympathy and compassion. May we continue to find within us the will to reach out to those in need. And in our love of others, may we know the blessing of community and the blessings of renewed faith. Blessed are you, Adonai, who watches over us on our journeys. Baruch atah Adonai shomea tefillah. Amen.
Amen.
And
Thank you, Rob.
thank you.